Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Button Hook Me Radio, episode 7. Yes, that's right. We're already at episode 7, which seems kind of weird since we're only in week 2, but I guess we started in the preseason early. But we're here. We're recording a little bit late this week. Usually we record Sunday nights after the huge batch of football, but we kind of had a couple run-ins, and my partner in crime, Brandon Sloniker, isn't here. He got lost. I think he's somewhere in Zimbabwe right now. So I brought in our guest that you guys met in episode, what was that, 4? We got Heath Carlton.
Yes, sir. I believe it was episode 4.
And he's still here. As you guys remember, he's a 49ers fan. He hasn't killed himself yet, so that's good.
Surprisingly, not yet. I take my chances with Kaepernick taking himself out before I do.
Oh, there you go. But, man, I'll tell you what. This was the fucking week that I was waiting for. I was wanting some real fucking football, and week 2 fucking delivered, man. What did you think of that crazy-ass Sunday?
It was an honestly interesting Sunday because it's just like you got everything going on throughout the week to build up. You got drama, suspense. It felt like it was a big movie coming out, and then once when everything went down, it performed. It was a masterpiece. Well, not for my team, of course, but still, it was a masterpiece, and I was really impressed how Sunday played out.
Yeah, it's been a long time I can remember since I've seen such a crazy fucking week of football. We had, first off, I guess we got to kind of go over a couple things. One of the things that thought was crazy this week is we have the Saints going 0-2. They've lost now to 2 teams that last year were 4-12, Atlanta and Cleveland. So what's the issue with that? What's going on with the Saints, Heath?
This year, things have changed with the NFL teams. It's like Atlanta and Cleveland have beefed up. They know how to play ball this year. Like I predicted Atlanta pulling off a high-scoring game against New Orleans, but I didn't realize Atlanta was going to beat them because every time Atlanta and New Orleans play, we always have a showcase of high scoring. And Cleveland comes through in the clutch, as I said off air, but as I've been telling Chris and Brandon, I predicted Cleveland going 9-7 this year. Call me crazy, but they have the team, and I believe in Hoyer. I believed in him last year, and then he went down. He was 3-0 last year.
He's 4-1 this year.
Yeah.
4-1 between the 2 years. So,
yeah, and they almost beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, they really easily could have beat Pittsburgh. I mean, that was very possible. And it's crazy because you think Saints and you think, okay, we have this high-power offense, and their offense still really put in. I mean, Graham had 118 from 2 touches. I was kind of surprised that I know some of the fantasy owners out there, 0 targets for Colston. You have Colston in a couple leagues, don't you?
I do. I think they were pretty nervous about the fumble.
I guess. Yeah, they weren't too happy with him fumbling in the 4th quarter of week 1.
They're like, we just need you just to go out there and be our decoy. We're not going to throw to you as our punishment because you fumbled the ball. So I can imagine if they threw it to him in the 4th quarter, he would have fumbled them, and Cleveland would have still won it either way. So.
Yeah, I think it's wild, that there's somebody that I have pegged to be, a legit, not only a playoff contender, but, someone that might be able to win some playoff games. I think they've got the right type of team together. You think they're missing Darren Sproles?
Oh, yeah. They're missing Sproles because, yes, they love their running back situation of 5,000 different running backs they like to pick, but Darren Sproles was their special running back where they could use them for any time, anyway. It's just like he was the guy. He was their emergency clutch guy in case something goes wrong, and he would just be their clutch guy. They would just toss down full field to Sproles, and Sproles will just take off running.
Yeah, he's one of those backs where they're not even really a running back anymore. You're starting to see that more and more. You have a handful of guys who are kind of like these all-purpose things, and the Saints don't really have anybody like that anymore. I think they've tried to maybe use Ingram a little bit in that field, but I think they're missing Sproles for sure.
Oh yeah, they are. They're trying to adjust with their running back situation, but they don't have a guy like Darren Sproles anymore.
Now, Vikings, are they going to be able to? Week 3, they have the Vikings. So do you think, Vikings have been playing some pretty good ball. They definitely look different than the traditional Vikings. And as we know, and we're going to be getting into later, they won't have Adrian Peterson, it looks like. But, so, do you think, they've got to beat the Vikings, yeah?
I think they could beat the Vikings, but if this is a week where Bridgewater takes over, that might change things up a bit, because it's just like we've seen backup quarterbacks come in the game and win the big one.
Change some shit around, that's for sure.
And it could happen.
I know Vikings weren't too happy with Castle throwing 4 picks last week.
To his former team, of course, So
well, he was like, oh, I'm supposed to throw to these guys, right? Like, that's what we're supposed to do?
Darrelle Revis was pretty happy playing flat with Matt Castle that week.
Yeah. But, anybody who follows Matt Castle as, I know, being, a Chiefs fan, that Matt Castle can look decent, and then the problem with him is just inconsistencies. He'll have that game where he just shits the bed completely, and you are totally in trouble.
Well, then again, they did play against the Rams week 1, so Matt Castle, anybody could have played. Even Blaine Gabbert could have been back there behind the field, and he would have had the best game of his career against the Rams last week.
Yeah, they could have really started off better there. It's kind of interesting. We'll kind of have to see how they go. Something that I don't even have in the notes here because I wrote most of these before Monday, but also 0-2 now is the Colts. They're another one of those teams where I was just like, and theirs is a little bit more, okay, they've played 2 pretty damn fucking good teams. But, still 0-2 for somebody that I thought is a pretty good, is going to definitely be in the playoffs at least.
They're probably the best 0-2 team out there other than New Orleans because Indianapolis knows how to fight. Mm-hmm. They came back and almost tied Denver against Peyton Manning, and they lost it to Philly because Darren Sproles, New Orleans, who misses now. But Indianapolis did lose to two good teams, like you said, and it just Indianapolis will be winning that division this year for sure. But it's like they're having a tough schedule because they did win the division last year, and they have to play everybody with winning records. And the AFC, they still have to play against New England, and they still have to play against Cincinnati, which, of course, that'll be an interesting game down the road.
Yeah. Speaking of Cincinnati, there's someone else I had on here just because, man, Cincinnati has been looking dangerous. Their defense has looked spectacular. They have, let's see here, I pulled some of the stats. Between their first 2 games, they have 5 sacks, 4 interceptions, a forced fumble, and then just last game, their rookie safety, Iloka, had 2 interceptions and that huge breakup pass on the John Jones touchdown just in that one game, just the last game in of themselves.
Yes, Cincinnati's defense has been looking pretty amazing, and other than Seattle, it's just like they probably have one of the best defenses out there. I think right people in the right spots. Yes.
Brandon, who would usually chime in here since he's our local resident Cincinnati expert, me and him have been chatting on Sundays and watching the games together. And the only real concern I know that he has, and I definitely have because I've seen it, is they've really showed a bunch of red zone issues. They've been getting the ball and moving the ball down the field just fine, but they can't put that shit in the end zone or kick field goals last week.
Oh, yeah, kicking field goals. I know that feeling. It's the same thing with my team. It's
the same thing with my team. We can move, like, if you look at the Chiefs game this last week, we had more first downs, better third down conversion, more yardage, more rushing yards, more passing yardage. We beat Denver in every single fucking stat line, and we still lost the game because we missed field goals, can't convert in the red zone, and making some dumb play calls.
You got to learn how to punch it in when it counts because it's like field goals do help in the critical moment, but they don't help at the time. It's just like if you're playing against like a guy like Peyton Manning, you want to get it in the end zone You
Well,
do
you
not.
got to take advantage of every little aspect you get.
Yes.
That's why I really miss. Jamal Charles is good and all, but I really miss Priest Holmes when it comes to that, because I'll tell you what, that guy more than anybody had a nose for the fucking end zone.
Yep.
And he could jump. You just go jump in the air, and you just jump and fly over people. But speaking of jumping and not flying so great, what happened with our old boy RG3 this week?
RG3, he got hurt once again, injury prone, as everyone's been saying it. But the thing was, he was running the ball once again, and he dislocated his ankle.
Yeah, the subway's not so good for your bones, I guess.
Yeah, it's not. It's not at all.
Yeah, I've been kind of an advocate for a while. Anytime I'd seen, like, even last year, they showcased Kirk Cousins. I always thought he was the better quarterback of the two. I always kind of saw Kirk. I mean, they're completely different quarterbacks, but we really saw it. I mean, how bad RG3 looked week 1, and how great Kirk Cousins looked week 2.
Other than they're playing against Jacksonville, Kirk Cousins has been looking amazing. He does know how to win the game when it comes down to it, because he did beat the Baltimore Ravens on a game-winning touchdown against them. So it's just, I personally think if Kirk Cousins has the time to play, he would be a better quarterback than RG3 overall, because it's just like Kirk Cousins knows how to play. It's just like, it was one of the weirdest draft things I ever saw. It's RG3 and then Kirk Cousins right afterwards. It's like,
yeah.
And I could personally think the ownership was like, we want RG3, and Shanahan's like, fuck you.
I want Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So he's just like, you guys can have your RG3, but I'm taking Kirk Cousins, which of course could have been a brilliant move by Shanahan there.
I really wish they had some camera footage on Shanahan wherever he's at when that happened, just sitting back going, excellent. Yeah. Just rubbing his head. He's just like, ha ha ha, I get what I want anyways. But
suck it, Washington.
But yeah, for people out there who didn't see the stats, Kirk Cousins, 22 for 33, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. The whole entire team just looked great. And granted, like he said, they were playing against Jacksonville. But, Jacksonville didn't look horrible week 1. They had some opportunities there, and Washington just looked like a different team. RG3, I kind of had to pull some stats here just because I was really interested in a few things, but RG3 last year had 16 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and 11 fumbles just in last year. Those are horrible numbers.
They are horrible numbers. It's just everybody's behind RG3 because it's the money and he brings people to the stands. It's not.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird mix between being famous and like being a good football player. And granted, he's explosive, but they bench, like, you have someone like Stephen Ridley where they bench him, for entire games if he fumbles the ball. Where RG3, that guy, he's fumbled 25 times since 2012 when he came into the league. Like, that's insane. That's nearly fumbling every single game he's played.
It's Washington's moneymaker. They want to see, people want to see RG3 regardless. I'm paying my money to see RG3 fumble the ball 3 times today. That's what I want to see.
I don't care. I'll go pay money and I'll sign his cast. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's just ridiculous. Play who's going to win you some games. I don't care who looks pretty on the face of the ticket. It's ridiculous. But I mean, I think those are some of the teams that kind of highlighted and looked really good in general. More so on some of the plays, man. There hasn't been a time that I can remember in recent football where there was more time sitting through a Sunday where I stood up and was just like, oh my fucking God, that just happened. Like, there were so many standout plays. Like, just even one-handed catches this week. There was the Kelvin Benjamin sideline one-hand catch. Mm-hmm. The Brandon Marshall one-handed touchdown catch Sunday night.
I was really impressed with that one. But even though it was against my team, I just looked at like,
wow, you can't stop that.
He's supposed to be hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of 3 touchdown catches, by the way.
3 touchdowns, yeah.
But yeah, just snagged it out of the air. Like, you can't even stop that. I don't know if you saw it because it wasn't aired, but I watched it since I'm a Chiefs fan. Anthony Fasano had one of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. Probably the best catch I've ever seen in Chiefs history, where he tipped the ball up and it got batted around, and he turned away blindside from the ball, so it was behind him, and then he fell and he caught it on the ground, and it was incredible. Did you catch that?
I did not catch that.
Oh man, you gotta find a highlight reel of it, or I think they were playing it. I think it was number 3, which I don't know how that could be number 3 on ESPN's Top 10. Yeah, but it was pretty fucking incredible. Jordy Nelson had an amazing over-the-shoulder one-hand catch. Wallace in Miami had a crazy catch there. The interception, Rolando McClain in Dallas had a crazy one-handed scoop off the turf touch interception. Man, it was just wild. There was people just catching the ball like it was nothing out there.
It was a good week of just spectacular catches. That could have been SportsCenter's top 10. It's just sorry, baseball and other sports. NFL just kind of took over today because, granted, it's NFL. Everybody loves NFL, but they're one-hand catches, guys. Come on.
I know. They should just start a whole new league where you can only catch with one hand, and then just have this plethora of people out there snagging the ball. In other plays that really was out there, was really hoping to have Brandon for this because he was super excited by some of the stuff that Cincinnati was putting down. But Mohamed Sanu threw a 50-yard touchdown pass to Tate. And Brandon we weren't watching on the play screen, but he was watching it on NFL Ticket separately on his phone. And he was just like, hold on, what the fuck just happened? And had to stop everything. And we waited for it, and they never ended up showing it because it wasn't a touchdown. It was just a 50-yard pass on red zone. And I ended up seeing the highlights later, and it was just an option that Sanu threw. And apparently the guy's a fucking fantastic quarterback.
I wonder Andy Dalton didn't put up any much numbers this week.
As I said, they should have signed Sanu to the big contract and just brought him in as quarterback. He could be the Sanu rocket over there.
Andy Dalton's backup, If Andy Dalton goes down, Sanu's I can play.
And then what's fucked is within 5 minutes of that, they all-out blitzed Dalton, and Dalton caught Sanu on an 80-yard touchdown slant. And so Sanu throws the touchdown. It reminded me of LaDainian Tomlinson style, where you had a guy throwing the touchdown, catching the touchdown, running the touchdown. Sanu was doing it all last game.
Oh yeah, it was pretty impressive. It's caught Atlanta off guard. Matt Ryan's Steven Jackson, can you do that?
I know, right? Waiting for somebody to do something over there.
Yeah.
And as any of our listeners know, I have a pretty passionate hate for the San Diego Superchargers, but old man Antonio Gates decided that he was going to drink out of the fountain of youth this week and put up some pretty decent numbers.
I do not support San Diego, but when they play against the Seattle Seahawks, I am the biggest San Diego Supercharger fan ever. Antonio Gates was probably by far my favorite non-49er player this week, catching touchdowns. He knew that this other kid is going to take over his spot, so he had to prove to himself that he could still play. And
yeah, it really makes you wonder where Ladarius Green is. Everyone had big hopes for him, and in a lot of fantasy, he was getting drafted above Antonio Gates.
He was.
And he's yet to even, I think, last week he didn't have anything. He wasn't even targeted. And obviously they were throwing Antonio Gates the whole time, but I think week 1, if I remember right, he only had 2 points in fantasy or something a 20-yard pass.
See, and it's Antonio Gates is getting the ball and he's getting the job done. But however, if it's in a different situation like New England, they're both going to be getting catches anyway. So I bet Tom Brady's can I just have those 2 guys and go back to 3 tight end formation?
Well, how many years does Antonio Gates have left in?
I don't know. After looking at this, he could probably have easily 2-3 years, but it depends how he's going to look the rest of the year. Everybody has their good games and their bad games. There's still a full season left, so.
So do you think that was a one-game little expedition, and you're going to see him going back to little 30, 40-yard games with no touchdowns, or do you think he's got a bit of a resurgence here?
I think he does because he caught a touchdown pass last week and he was still looking good. And it's just, you never know. It's just like he's been looking good the last couple of weeks, and preseason he's been looking all right too. So it's just, you never know. There's still a full season left. It could be just like halfway through he's not going to do much, So we'll see how it pans out for Antonio Gates.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see. I hope he falls and breaks his supercharger neck, but we'll see how it goes. I could care less for anything to do with the Chargers, but on to more important players, like fantasy players I have on my team. Brandon Marshall, that we just talked about.
Oh God.
3 touchdowns, was playing hurt. Here's the deal. So I had Brandon Marshall on my team, and I was like, they were like, okay, this guy's 75% chance not to play. So I couldn't even play him on my fantasy team because it was the late game. So I had to play someone else just in case he didn't play. So here's Brandon Marshall, best game of the season, given there's only been 2 weeks. Don't even get any of the fantasy points.
Nope. So did not a lot of people. People are like, Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. Questionable game time decision, and people are like,
And then when it's the late game, you don't have a choice. You can't wait and see, so you have to kind of put somebody in and place them. Luckily, I put in Eric Decker, who still lit it up, but definitely not to the 3 touchdown effect Brandon Marshall did. But that's all right. I'm one anyways. I won't hold it against the Brandon Marshall, but get your shit healthy. We need you out there, homie.
Not against the 49ers, though.
Here's an interesting one. Everybody's favorite defensive lineman, J.J. Watt.
Can I say something on this?
Yeah.
I'm in another fantasy league where we have defensive players, and I play J.J. Watt every week, and I picked this guy up in round 5. Round 5, and people looked at me crazy, like, why J.J. Watt so early? Because of moments like that where he's out there catching touchdown passes.
You couldn't expect it that goal. That guy's never lined up
on
an offensive
but still,
formation
he
ever.
swats balls, and I get half a point. So I'll take the extra 4 points.
I'm not hating on the quick J.J. Watt pickup. That guy's a beast. But definitely interesting to see him out there catching touchdowns. He's athletic enough, and he's big, and not that it mattered. No one even covered him. He was standing in the end zone. Yeah.
Oakland was probably scared. They were like, we cannot do anything to this guy. I'm afraid of going near him because he would just swat them down like it's a ball. He'd just see a defender come up. He'd be like, swat, and they'll just fly away.
Yeah. But as good as J.J. Watt was, and has been already this year, I'll tell you what, my defensive performance for last week was the rookie in Chicago, Kyle Fuller. This kid had 2 interceptions, and one was one of the best interceptions I have ever seen, and it was the reason Chicago won that game.
Yes, Kyle Fuller looked really good that game, and that's all I can say. If it wasn't for him. Well, actually, never mind. San Francisco did shoot themselves in the foot, so even if Kyle Fuller wasn't out there, we would still probably lost because Kaepernick would have probably threw it to somebody else.
Yeah, the old Niners just didn't look the same as they did week 1.
No, they did not. They looked good the first half, and then suddenly Jay Cutler got mad. He got super pissed, and then he decided to throw touchdown passes to Brandon Marshall. And then the Bears defense decide, let's blitz Kaepernick, see what happens. And, yeah, I never saw Kaepernick flat on his back that many times in my life, like literally.
Yeah, he took a couple pretty sweet little hits.
Yes.
I was watching with a grimace on my face. I was like, oof. And definitely not the game you wanted for Kaepernick there. But at least he didn't get injured. Like, that's
yes,
more than I can say about players on my team.
Yeah, I don't want Blaine Gabbert back there in Week 3 against Arizona because I would be like, oh, God.
Because if there was a name to the game in Week 2 or even the first 2 weeks of the season, it's been high-profile players getting hurt. Like,
yes.
There's been some serious injuries. So just in the first couple weeks, these are people, I strictly stuck to people who have like high fantasy value here. So, but just to name off a few people, Maurice Jones-Drew out with the hand.
Yep.
Jamal Charles now out with the high ankle sprain.
Yep.
Doug Martin with the hamstring.
Yep.
Cecil Shorts with the hamstring. AJ Green with the toe.
He didn't look like he got hurt that game, though. That's what it kind of bothered me. I'm just like, AJ Green, get back out there, homie. You don't look hurt.
And a little turf toe action. They say
Yeah.
he's going to be back next week, but he missed the whole game. Anybody who had AJ Green on their fantasy team, Jason turned on the couch. He, had AJ Green and just gave him the big goose egg there. You know, we talked about RG3 with the ankle. They're going to wait to see what's going on with that. I guess the X-rays are negative, but that it's a actual really bad sprain. So, Deshaun Jackson AC joint sprain in his shoulder.
And they still won the game without those two players.
Yeah, which is impressive.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of talent across the board there. Ryan Matthews with the knee. Chargers go down. I applaud, so I'm okay with that. Carson Palmer, nagging shoulder issue, nerve injury, I guess they say it is. So Arizona's kind of struggling at the quarterback position. Mark Ingram breaks his hand, and he's out for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Your boy Vernon Davis is on crutches.
Man.
I haven't even seen any real updates on that. All I heard is he was on crutches after the game.
They haven't said anything if he's going to play or anything. They've been keeping it hush-hush, but, man, that was our downfall, too, was Vernon Davis getting hurt because it's just like when the ball was spread out, Vernon Davis was right there, and then when Vernon went down, Chicago started playing extra D on us, so that's what happened.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. That's a big one for you guys. Gerald McCoy broke his hand as well. 2 broken hands in 1 week. That was crazy. Tavon Austin with the knee. Noshan Moreno dislocated elbow. They said like 8 weeks for that.
Other than RG3's ankle injury, if you watch that footage of Noshan Moreno, how he hurt his elbow was probably the most nastiest hit I seen other than RG3. It's just like when he lands on it, it tweaks. Like, you see it tweak, and it's just like, people are like, what's wrong with its leg? I was just like, I saw the fucking elbow, and I was fucking disgusted. It's like, they showed it in slow motion, and it was pretty nasty.
Your elbow's important, too, if you're a running back. So you're holding that ball tight to your body, and, that can be all bad. Mercedes Lewis out with an ankle. Charles Tillman, they re-injured his triceps that he had injured last year, and they're saying that might be the end for him. Like,
he's saying it's not over, but I don't know. It just, you never know with Charles Tillman. It's just like, I would be cool enough to see him play one more full year where he's healthy. It's like, the guy deserves it.
Incredible player, yeah.
Yes.
I felt really bad for him. It cuts to him, and he's like crying on the sideline. I'm like, man, it just goes to show that like some of these guys, a vet like him, where how many years is he? Is he a 12-year? Is that
12 or 13 year?
And, guys like that, he's made millions and millions of dollars. He's always been a high-profile defensive player. But, still are in it for the game. They want to play fucking football.
Who knows? He might pull the old Ray Lewis goodbye tour, at the end of the season and be like, we're going to the Super Bowl, and he suddenly plays the Super Bowl,
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
And then, on top of all those injuries, like we said earlier, Jeffrey and Marshall were both said to be injured and not playing that game, but they both ended up started. So, but that's a lot of fucking big name players. Like, there's some serious people trying to figure out what they're going to do filling holes.
Yeah, the injury bug was pretty bad, and it just was not looking good at all. But the worst injury bug of team-wise is your team. What is going on over there? It's
rough, man. We've had over the last few years just a lot of injuries, and Jamal going down is going to be a big one for us. Luckily, I'm one of those people. I'm a big supporter of Nile Davis. I wasn't so sure about him up until when Jamal Charles got hurt at the end of last year, and then now came on hard. So I think that we're going to be okay. The nice thing with him is he mimics Jamal Charles really well, so we don't have to change up the playbook. We can still run our offense really similar. He can still catch the ball, which we depend on Jamal Charles to do a whole bunch. Yeah, on top of all our defensive injuries, that's definitely a big one.
Yes, I feel really bad for a team like yours that's suffering through injuries, and this is week 2 already.
But we have Miami, and then we have a bye week. So
hey.
if we can look good against Miami and make that work, and at least give us a bye week to somewhat heal up. If Jamal ends up missing 4 weeks, if we go through Miami in the bye week, and then the week that we just had, that's like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Before we're even really back into. Unfortunately, we come back, I think, against New England, but that's not the best way to go. But definitely, we might be getting back in there where we have him back in the mix. So,
you never know. Somebody might get hurt during the bye week. I saw somebody get hurt that's not supposed to be playing, was suspended, and got hurt far, far away working out.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Well, let's definitely stay away from all that. But we do have some Week 3 football to look forward to. Like I said, we're recording this later in the week, so tomorrow we already have Thursday night football. So we're pretty excited for that. Thursday night, tomorrow night, if you're listening to this, which will be probably on Thursday, we're going to have that night Falcons and Buccaneers. The Falcons have looked really good this year. They look like they're back on it. Even their loss last week, they looked like a damn good football team. It's just Cincinnati's defense looked better.
Yes, they did. I think Atlanta will prevail. If the Buccaneers somehow beat Atlanta, then Atlanta does not deserve to be the good team that everybody's on high hopes on, because Tampa Bay lost to 2 backup quarterbacks. Oh, no, correct me. I'm wrong. A backup quarterback and a third-string quarterback. So,
yeah. It's definitely tricky. It just kind of matters with the Bucs. They really didn't even look good against St. Louis last week. So, I'm interested to see, if the Falcons just come in and blow them out tomorrow night, or what the deal is there.
It's a division rival game. You never know in those games.
That's true. That's true. And they might have Doug Martin back.
Doug Martin might come back, but you don't know. Those little injuries might play an effect on him too, because they said that he was questionable, and then he went to doubtful to game time decision, and then gone. He didn't play.
Yeah. So it should be interesting. I mean, I think it's probably going to hurt him a little bit that they're playing the quick turnaround there for Thursday. If it was Sunday, I'm sure that'd give him a couple more days, but we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
The main highlight game that I'm looking forward to Week 3, Super Bowl rematch, Hawks and Broncos. I say, the Seahawks lost last week, and I give it to the Chargers. They really kind of put it to them. Really went after high-end, high-caliber offense and went after them. But I thought the Seahawks still looked really damn good. I didn't think that they looked bad. I just thought the Chargers happened to look better that game. So I'm still really excited to see what, 2 really high-caliber teams, Broncos and Seahawks, you can't get much better than that.
Defense versus offense again. So it's
I don't know. Seahawks offense has looked almost
Percy
just as
Harvin
good.
And
Marshawn Lynch, and they, in that Seahawks game, they're getting a lot of flack because I think Marshawn only had 7 carries or something like that.
Yeah.
Very unlike the Seahawks. But their offense has been their passing game. Russell Wilson's really kind of stepped it up with some of that, and then been running the ball good. So
Percy Harvin's healthy.
So far. It's only Week 3. We'll see. Percy Harvin will go down at some point with a migraine or something. Stub toe. But another one that I'm looking forward to, those division games, like you said. Packers and Lions is always a fun little game. Big time shootout over there.
It's always a good time, and Green Bay always beats the Lions every single time.
So it's good for people like me that happen to have Randall Cobb and some of the different Lions players. Some of those people out there with Jordy Nelson sure got their handful yesterday with 219 yards or whatever he had, just something ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought Lions would be a great team this year to watch, and then after I watched them play against Carolina, I'm just like, this is not the Detroit Lions I know. But then again, it is the Detroit Lions I know when they choke.
Yeah, and the Packers defense is no Carolina Panthers defense. So I think we're going to see a big high-scoring game, which is fine by me. I have some fantasy players between the two teams, and I will take all the points.
Yes, it'll be an interesting matchup between those two teams this weekend. And I think Detroit might finally go over the hump and beat the Packers.
That could be interesting.
If they are at home and Detroit's fans are finally going behind them, and it's against Green Bay.
I'll tell you what is going to happen. Eddie Lacy's finally going to have a breakout game. He's had a really mediocre week 1 and 2. This week he's going to go off against the Lions.
Against the Lions defense?
Yep, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
I think it's going to happen. I think he has a big game this week.
What about a Reggie Bush 80-yard touchdown run?
Reggie Bush can take it for 80 yards anytime he touches the ball, so you never really know with that guy. Another big one that now gets a lot more interesting now that RG3 is out, Kirk Cousins is in, Redskins looked so good last week. Redskins versus Eagles, and the Eagles, who the last 2 weeks have both been big come-behind victories. So Eagles 2-0, Redskins 1-1, and I think that's going to be another really interesting game.
I think it'll be a really interesting matchup to see, and we'll finally see Kirk Cousins in a full game, where what people can expect Kirk Cousins to do. It's like if the Redskins lose and it's a close game and Kirk Cousins has a good game, Kirk Cousins is gonna get deserving what he deserves.
Yeah, the nod from there. Yeah, and it'll be interesting too. There's kind of a little bit extra hype around this just because it's Deshaun back in Philadelphia, and he kind of got that little bit of a injury there at the end of the last week. But I saw on social media in a couple different forums, he's telling everybody he's like, oh, he's there with his pads ready to go. Like he's pretty excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Kirk Cousins is going to play it with Deshaun Jackson, and we're going to finally see how different the Redskins can be with Deshaun Jackson back in the game, too.
No doubt. So which one are you looking for? Game, I know obviously always watching the Niners. Besides the Niners, who else are you really looking for? I think it's going to be just a good game.
Good game in Week 3 will probably be... Actually, as I'm checking out the schedule right now, this is Week 3 schedule. Actually, we're looking. I like a good old-fashioned AFC North battle. It's going to be Cleveland and Baltimore. And I think I think Cleveland is going to pull the upset over Baltimore.
I would love that. I think I've been one for the last 2 years now, ever since they signed Flacco to his giant contract that he didn't deserve, that the Ravens have been on a decline, and Steve Smith showed a little bit of resurgence over there, but I definitely think the Browns have what it takes.
But the scary thing is, a guy that we have not talked on the show at all, Owen Daniels. That guy freaking looked amazing. Dennis Pitta, who?
I know, yeah, and everybody, Dennis Pitta had a lot of hype behind him this year.
Yeah.
They said he might be the #1 target over there, and he sure hasn't looked it whatsoever.
No, it's Owen Daniels. That guy looked amazing, and he looked great in Houston.
He did, oh yeah.
He did, and it's just like as soon as he put on the Baltimore Ravens pads, it's just like, how's this guy going to do? And then when you watch that guy, it's like Steve Smith and Owen Daniels, their careers just kind of resurrected where it just left off. And like, we're badass. We could play. Throw us the ball. And look at them. And it's just like, that's the one scary thing about Baltimore is if Flacco's giving them the ball like that, they fucking look amazing. And just like, but Cleveland's defense, I freaking enjoy. Their corners, they cover them in boxing gloves, kickboxing gloves. I saw a special on that, and it's just like, and if you look it up, they cover the receivers in their kickboxing gloves.
Interesting. I haven't seen that.
So that way they don't tug on the jersey, so they don't get flagged on it.
Oh, that's a good idea. You know, you might see a bunch of little changes like that down the road where there's different techniques in place to, help with some of that. But it should be interesting. Now, I do want to go to a segment, kind of one of our newer segments here. Brandon, last week, we have this little button hook bets that we do. And Brandon bet this last week. His big bet was Jamaal Charles, since he barely got any attention in our week 1 loss, was going to get 15 touches. And unfortunately for Brandon, Jamaal Charles got hurt a couple plays into the game. So he got 2 attempts. He was on his way to 15, to be fair. High ankle sprain, they're saying 4 to 6 weeks. I'm hoping for 4. But, we're going to give Brandon the bye there, saying, okay, he got hurt. They didn't give him to get the chance. So
he didn't get much attention either.
He got medical attention. That's the kind of attention you don't want.
Okay.
But, so we'll give Brandon the bye on that. But I do want to make a quick note here, just because of how much flack I got for my first button hook bet about Vikings and ex-Vikings players. Just let you guys know, just to rub it in a little, Gerhart, 8 yards rushing last week. Patterson, 56 yards in catches last week. So for all of you that were coming at me sideways because I talked about how overrated Cordell Patterson and Toby Gerhart were, they're still sucking it up week 2, and I hope you're playing them on your fantasy team. But since Heath our guest this week, we are going to let him make the button hook bet. I was originally going to take this week's button hook bet when we were recording on a Monday and say that Adrian Peterson was not going to play this Sunday. And they had announced that he was going to play and everything was right. And I was like, it's not going to happen. Some shit was going to go down. And then sure enough, now it's Wednesday and we know that he won't be playing. So it would have been already positive by Wednesday. But we'll let that go. We'll let that slide since we didn't get to record. But we'll let Heath take a little shot at it. What do you got for us? What's your bet? What's going to happen week 3?
I think the St. Louis Rams are going to beat the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it's possible. It's crazy to say something like that just because how hurt St. Louis is. The team, like if you take the talent between the two teams, that weighs heavily, heavily, heavily in Dallas's favor. But why? Why is St. Louis going to win Dallas?
Why is St. Louis going to beat Dallas? I think it's just one of those ballsiest moves where it's just like you're going to see a big upset of an uproar where it's just like we saw Cleveland beat New Orleans. We saw a bunch of big-name teams go down to these little guys, and the little guys are finally putting their foot down, saying that they can play. It's like St. Louis may be either playing with a second stringer or a third string quarterback this weekend. It's just we saw St. Louis beat the Buccaneers, but then again, it's Tampa Bay. It's just like Sean Hill is either going to start or this Austin Davis kid, who's 1-0 as a starting quarterback, by the way.
Sure, yeah, why not?
1-0. Let's go 2-0 with it against the Dallas Cowboys, and then you never know. Romo might be kind enough to hand them interceptions and fumbles this week too.
I'm sure they're going to be very aware of that. I think you're going to see Dallas run the ball a lot against St. Louis. I'm happily playing DeMarco Murray in my fantasy league, so I'll be okay with that.
Knock on wood, not to get hurt.
I think they're going to get a little bit of a lead there and just try and sit on it. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game and a lot of field goals, so I would put in either of those kickers if you're in fantasy land. But I think there's going to be a lot of clock running off in that game just so Dallas can get away with that victory.
17-3 victory.
I still see Dallas winning it, but we'll see. We'll give you a chance and see if you can pull that out.
All right.
Another segment we like to do on here is a button hook breakdown. Our button hook breakdown is basically we take something that is football related but is not necessarily football like we've been talking about the rest of the show and really break it down. This week is something of a little bit more serious issue. You know, we usually do funny stuff here, but there's been so much talk with legal issues. Everything keeps coming down the line. You know, it kind of started off with Ray Rice. We had the initial video. We haven't really got to talk about any of this on the show. And as soon as Ray Rice, that video came out, you know, there was a little bit of backfire around it, just a slight. But then the real kicker came the day after we recorded last week on Sunday. Monday morning, they released the actual elevator footage of Ray Rice, like, knocking his wife out. Heath, what did you think the first time you saw that?
I was really stunned how it happened. It just, like, he literally knocked her shit out, and I was knocked her clean out. It's just we're
one shot.
Yeah, we're talking like it was a bigger knockout than you see in the MMA's type of thing. He cleaned her clock. I was stunned.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild, and you know, still, you know, the NFL decided when they saw the initial video that they were going to suspend Ray Rice for 2 games, and then as some of this came out, they said that they hadn't seen the entire video, and that now that they'd seen the entire video, they're suspending him definitely. Baltimore let him go, and there's like been all these ramifications. I've been pretty public, if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, saying that I don't believe the NFL. I think they had that video off jump.
You and Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter was all over that shit too. Adam Schefter was calling it. He's like, I don't even know what's going on here. He's like, they had the tape since what was it? April?
Yeah, and then apparently now there's a whole entire independent investigation, and I think some heads are going to roll. I think old Goodell's going to lose his job.
People want Goodell's head.
Yeah.
He's just like, I have never seen the video. And the Baltimore Ravens are like, we haven't seen the video either. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Video? What video?
I know. So it's just like, some people have seen the video and they're covering it up. And now, especially with TMZ, which, of course, by the way, I'm trying to figure out, what did NFL do to piss off TMZ that bad?
Nothing. You don't even have to piss off TMZ. They're just there doing their own shit. Like, they don't give a fuck.
They're out for the NFL's blood somehow, because the next time,
because it's good ratings.
They brought another video. They brought more footage of something else that was coming out, which, of course, that stunned the hell out of me, and I don't know why.
Yeah, as everybody knows now, because it's been a few days, we're a little bit behind here, but Adrian Peterson indicted on child abuse charges. And when you first hear that, it throws you off, because Adrian Peterson's always pushed out to not only be a very Christian focused, he's always talked about praying before games and stuff like that, but really just comes across as a wholeheartedly nice guy that everybody likes. And then you hear the charges and you're kind of like, oh, you never really know. But then, like you were saying, TMZ breaks the pictures.
Yes.
And this kid is not spanked. He is whipped and has bleeding legions all over his body.
Yes.
And when he goes to court, they're saying October 25th or something like that. Once again, the team says, okay, we're going to let due process happen, and we're going to play, Adrian Peterson on Sunday. And
actually, no, they deactivated him for the first game against New England.
Yeah, that's right. And then they were going to play him on the next week.
Yeah.
And then as a little bit of that uproar kind of started, they decided to change their mind. And it was really comical to me, just because what had happened was, when you watch those press conferences, if you watch the original one, in paraphrasing here, it was basically, well, Adrian Peterson is really good. We suck without Adrian Peterson. We're going to play him next week. And then you watch the press conference that just happened today on Wednesday. It was basically like, well, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, apparently all their big-time sponsors really threw a fit. I guess they had $2 billion in sponsor money that was going to be disappearing if they didn't do something about it. So it kind of goes to show you that they're quick to change their mind.
Well, plus it's just, especially when another kid, they said that he's suspected of abusing, and then you got people like the governor of Minnesota, that's saying, I pretty much run the city, and technically Minnesota is my team to run. I don't want him to play. If the governor is saying something like that, they need to start listening. And then, yeah, the sponsors, it's just like you got sponsors like Pepsi and Gatorade who hasn't said anything yet, and they're going to probably get ready to say something if they see something like that.
Although I did see Nike strip their individual sponsorship of Adrian Peterson. So
yes, they did.
It'll be interesting to see kind of how that all breaks down, and we'll see the length. They said that they plan on keeping him suspended until his court date. So they're saying he might move up his court date to try and make it all go through faster, depending on what's going to happen. Or we might not see Adrian Peterson until November-ish.
Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings found this loophole where they could deactivated him, kind of not what Baltimore did with Ray Rice, but it was some kind of weird loophole that a lot of people, teams, and owners don't know about. Like, it was a strange rule of the loophole where they deactivated him, but they could send Adrian Peterson away, but they have until like October something to get this fixed. But Adrian Peterson is still getting paid, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
$625,000 a game.
Yeah, he's still getting paid, by the way, under this little loophole where it's just like Adrian Peterson won't be a distraction, but he cannot be near the facility. But still, how are you still getting paid?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tricky. We're going to see kind of how that plays out, because a couple people followed suit. There's been a long ongoing process going on with Greg Hardy of the Carolina Panthers for a similar situation, and they decided to do the same thing with him. They're going to deactivate him, similar to what they did with Adrian Peterson, but he's still going to be getting all his bonuses and everything.
Yeah. I don't know why Greg Hardy is out there still playing. It's just like he shouldn't even played last weekend, and it just, like, even the owner of the Carolina Panthers broke down in tears, and it's just like he doesn't understand why his players are doing something like this. It's just like Greg Hardy should not be playing. I'm like, well, you're the fucking owner. Bench his ass. Why did he play last Sunday? And it's just like, you don't need to come out in public and be like crying and just like, I don't know why. Like, like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some backlash going on, so it's interesting, It's kind of close to home for you, too, because Ray McDonald kind of has a little domestic abuse issue with his pregnant wife, too, which might even bring a whole different layer into things.
Ray McDonald. First off, it was Aldon Smith, which, of course, he's suspended for 9 games now. We lose Aldon Smith. Now, Ray McDonald. It's just like, as much as I want Ray McDonald on the field, he's a big impact player to help the team out. He should not be playing the game either. He should have been deactivated, so that way they could not deactivate it like the little Adrian Peterson. Like, they needed to deactivate him so he could get his shit figured out and not getting paid for it. It's like, the one thing I did respect Aldon Smith did last year, he checked himself into rehab after he got caught. What is Ray McDonald doing? Out there still playing football, It's just like he needs to man up and get his shit fixed,
Yeah, and then as we were setting up the podcast for today, we had another set of news come down on top of all this other stuff going on, is that Jonathan Dwyer, the backup running back of the Indianapolis Colts, got arrested for an assault stemming earlier this summer, in which I don't know if they got more proof of or what exactly happened with it, but they were arrested and put him into custody today. So he was already let go by the Colts. So it'll be interesting. I think a lot of these teams, anytime something like that's happened, you're going to see some quick dismissal to wipe their hands of it.
I think Jonathan Dwyer's career is pretty much done. He's not a big impact player to make a team's difference, especially if you got an assault case.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when you're going from Adrian Peterson to Jonathan Dwyer.
Yeah, it's just like I was telling you this the other day, and I am in Facebook. It's just like in the first round of fantasy football, I'm checking the first 12 players, their police records. Like if Drew Brees has a ticket violation,
you have yardage, touchdowns, bye week, police record.
Yes.
Like you're like, oh, okay. I'm
avoiding Drew Brees. Like he was pretty much MVP last year with like ticket violations, man. Avoiding those, you know.
Yeah. He was crosswalk. He didn't take the crosswalks.
Yeah, avoiding the police records, you know, even on a red light.
It's like, I'm pretty sure that guy was fishing without a license. We should not draft that guy.
Yeah, just avoiding the ones that's in semi-trouble, you know? It's just like, you never know. Peyton Manning might get busted on the littlest thing in the world, not paying a parking ticket.
Yep, and then, you know, you got some drug suspension guys. They kind of came to agreements as well with some of the drug suspensions, trying to figure out how they're exactly going to work some of that. So you guys have Wes Welker coming back this week, and Josh Gordon's year sentence got suspended down. I think it was to 10 now, 10 weeks. So you got some of those guys coming back. I'm sure the Browns could sure use Josh Gordon, and Welker is always a dangerous tool. But a lot of those guys who have some of that drug conviction background are going to be coming back as well.
Yeah, and there's two players we forgot to add to the list, too. The double running back of Pittsburgh, Le'Veon Bell and LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, they're in trouble too.
They said nothing at all, and they're still out there playing. Why is Pittsburgh letting them still play? Because they need them that bad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you know, DUIs usually, like, that's what Dwayne Bowe, you know, under suspicion of driving. He wasn't intoxicated. They were saying he was high, but you know, same kind of sentence where it's probably just going to be forwarded 1 game to 2 game suspension, especially if you don't have a background. Like that's kind of where Welker was at. You know, he didn't have any sort of background issues, but you saw what happens when you have a bunch of background issues. You know, hopefully none of these guys go the route of our somewhat native Ryan Leaf here. Yeah, that's
yes, Ryan Leaf. And I believe he was convicted to go to prison. I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
No, I think you're right. I think I saw that too. I think he got like 5 years or something like that was the sentence he got.
And the question I want to ask though, because Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf came out of the same draft class, and they're both going their opposite ways. You know, what's going to happen first? Do you think Peyton Manning's going to retire, or Ryan Leaf's going to get out of prison? Because they're both at that crossroad where...
Let's hope Ryan Leaf stays in prison and Peyton... Let's hope both happen, for my sake. I don't want Ryan Leaf breaking into my house and stealing my TV, and I don't want Peyton Manning throwing touchdowns against my Chiefs anymore. So let's hope they both...
Or the roles would switch where you see Peyton Manning come in and break into your house. What would you do if you see Peyton Manning taking your TV out?
Oh, if Peyton Manning steps foot in my house, I'm definitely shooting his ass. Like, that more so than anybody. Like, I'm just like,
you don't care if Ryan Leaf comes in and just be like, I'm taking your TV, man. Be like, go ahead. Peyton walks in and be like, I'm shooting you, motherfucker.
I can't get either way. I get a former Charger or a Bronco. They're all coming after us, Chiefs players. But yeah, it is pretty crazy. You know, and then, you know, just in recent history too, you know, we've had just in the last couple years, you know, all this now is coming to light, and they're still in the background, like the issues with like Aaron Hernandez, you know, still his investigation and all the different stuff. Adding on a couple different murders onto his sentence now and trying to figure out what all he's involved in. Hit home with Chief stuff too with Javon Belcher. You know, we just recently had dealt with him with his murder-suicide of him and his wife, and it also brought back, I saw an interview with Ray Lewis where he was talking about with Ray Rice and talking about Ray Lewis's whole ordeal. When was that? Like 2008, somewhere like that. It was quite a while ago. And
Ray Lewis, that was when the Ravens and the Giants, excuse me, they played in the Super Bowl. That was the Super Bowl weekend, right?
yeah, and he was charged with murder, and he ended up getting proved innocent out of that. But it was really, really, really interesting. I thought it was really funny just because I was like, well, at least O.J. Simpson waited until he was done with football to start killing people.
Yeah.
Some of these other guys are getting an early jump on it. So,
yeah.
you never know with that. But, we'll see how it all turns out, and kind of, hope the best for, the NFL getting some of their policies back on board and getting this shit figured out, because right now it's a hot fucking mess.
It is a hot mess, and people, as I said, want Goodell's head, and it's not looking good for Goodell right now. So.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if he's gone. So just as a quick wrap up here, because it's about time for us to get rid of the show. Since you're the guest again this week, we're going to give you the option. Our final little last thing is our button hook blitz, and we get to choose a team and tell us what you hate about them.
Chicago Bears. Fuck you.
Oh, so now you're just hurt because you lost to the Chicago Bears, and now you want to hate on the Chicago Bears.
Yes, I lost to a diabetic fuck as a quarterback that fucking made us.
Oh, so now you're anti-diabetes just because Jay Cutler ate a Rice Krispie treat and was able to outthrow your football
Yes,
team.
Jay Cutler should have stayed in Denver, and Peyton Manning would have stayed in Indianapolis, then would not be in this whole fucking mess of things. You would be happy if Jay Cutler was back in Denver.
Oh, yeah, I definitely, he sounds better than Peyton Manning to me. I've always been a pretty big advocate of Brandon Marshall as football player goes, but I do have some hate for the Bears, but it stems back to a little bit older Bears team. I hate Jim McMahon.
Yes! Mr. Hollywood?
Yeah, Mr. Hollywood. He was like the 1980s Phillip Rivers. And, there's something about that guy that always just pissed me off. And he always wore the white headband, and he would look like such a douchebag with it. And I remember for years and years and years, I still have them all, but me and my dad collected starting lineups, the little action figures, and they would come with a helmet on them, and the helmet could come off. And I remember I got a Jim McMahon one from somebody, and I took it off, and even his little action figure still had the little white headband on it. And I was like, oh man, I hate this guy. So I just broke it. I was like,
oh yeah, there's tons of things of the Bears. Mike Ditka, can we hate on him, or is he too respectable to hate on the Ditka?
Nothing's too respectable to hate on Button Hook me.
Stroking my Ditka. I'll be stroking my Ditka today.
Yeah, Ditka's just he's something else, man. I don't know. He was always such a respected coach, but I think a lot of that was a lot more on some of the quality players that he had as a team than any real coaching. The guy can't even really get a full sentence out when he's on the pre-NFL shows.
Yeah. He doesn't. And it's just the only thing I did like about the Bears was the 85 Bears, because everyone talked about the 85 Bears. But Jim McMahon, he got a Super Bowl, unlike Phillip Rivers, so it's okay. We probably won't see Phillip Rivers get a Super Bowl, but still.
Yeah, I don't think so, but you never know. If maybe if Phillip Rivers leaves and his backup quarterback to somebody, he's definitely not going to do it as a starting quarterback, I'll tell you that. But the Bears, man.
Rex Grossman.
Oh, God.
How about Rex Grossman?
Old Rex Grossman was a joke, too. The Bears had quite a few quarterbacks that went through there that were pretty trash.
Kyle Orton.
They've definitely sorted through a heap of people before they got Jay Cutler. So they have no shortage of shitty quarterbacks in their past. I'd say the only other people probably more than them with shitty quarterbacks is Cleveland.
And Miami.
Yeah, Miami.
And Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few teams, but the Bears were up there for quite a while with a barrage of shitty quarterbacks. Yeah, well, we better kind of cut this short anyways. We're kind of already at our hour point here, but Heath, want to thank you coming on here and filling in for Brandon last minute, and we're going to be getting some guests going throughout the week or throughout the rest of the season here anyways, so we're going to bring some new voices to you guys on Button Hook Radio, and if you get a chance, if you're on the website, buttonhookme.com, we're on Stitcher Radio, we're on iTunes, so wherever you listen to your podcast, you can hunt us down. Feel free to share us out, give us a rating so we can get this out to more people. But any last words, Heath?
Fuck you, Chicago.
Yeah. You better focus on week 3, sir.
It still hurts.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.
Later.